Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Now we are going to discuss about the kingdom of fungi. Okay, so in the kingdom of fungi, right, what we should know is the characteristic of organism. Okay, so describe the characteristic of kingdom fungi, which include three phylums. Phylums, sorry. Okay, Phylum Mucoromycota, it should be O instead of U. Mucoromycota, Ascomycota, and Basidiomycota. Okay, before we continue, we need to learn about the fungal morphology, right? Which some characteristic related to fungal or fungi. So some fungi are unicellular, but most other species are multicellular. So fungi have vegetative bodies that constructed of tiny filaments called as hyphae, or we call as hypha. So hyphae form an interwoven mat called as mycelium, and the fungal hyphae cell wall is made of chitin. So this is how to differentiate fungi and plantae, where fungi, the cell wall is built of chitin. As for plantae, the cell wall is built or composed of cellulose. Okay, now let's see what meant by the hyphae or hypha. Right, so you can see from here, this is the hyphae. Hyphae form the interwoven mat that we call as mycelium. So this is mycelium and this is hyphae. Okay. Again, most fungi are multicellular with hyphae, right? So most fungi are multicellular. Remember, some fungi are unicellular, but most of them are multicellular. So most fungi are multicellular with hyphae. The hyphae are divided into cells by septa, or we call as septum. So this is what is septa. You can see that the hyphae, this is the whole hyphae. So hyphae is divided into cells that we call as septa or septum. You can see that this is one septum, this is another septum, this is another septum. Okay, right. So these septa have pores that is large enough for ribosome, mitochondria, or even nuclei to flow from cells to cell. Okay, and some fungi are lack of septa or aseptate. This kind of fungi is known as multinucleated cenocytic fungi. Okay, right. So you can see this is septate hyphae, monokaryotic classification. Why is it monokaryotic? Mono means one, karyotic means nucleus. So within each of these septa, division by septa, okay, you can see this is pore that is allowing even nucleus to flow from one cell to another cell, right, of each septa. So this is what we call as monokaryotic septa, because you can see that in each of these cells, it only contains one nucleus, right? Okay, so this is septate hyphae, and this is what we call as multinucleated cenocytic hyphae. Why? There is no septa over here, you can see, and these are all the multinucleus. So we call it as multinucleated cenocytic hyphae. Okay, all right. So the septate fungi have monokaryotic one nucleus or dikaryotic hyphae two nucleus. You can see that maybe some later on you can see some hyphae have dikaryotic nucleus. Okay. Alright, dikaryotic hyphae resulted from repeated of nuclear division without cytoplasmic division. Okay, what does it mean? It means like this. Okay, let's say this is hyphae. Alright, so what happened? This is nucleus. So the nucleus is dividing into two. Without the division of the cytoplasm. If the cytoplasm divide, it would be like this. But now what happened? Only the nucleus that is dividing. So that's why you can see this is what we call as dikaryotic hyphae, where the dikaryotic hyphae resulted from repeated nuclear division of the nucleus only without the division of the cytoplasm. Okay. Okay, parasitic fungi usually have some hyphae that is modified as arbuscule. So arbuscule is hyphal tips that penetrate into the tissue of host. So this arbuscule is functioned to absorb nutrient from the host or kill the host. Okay, right. You can see here, this is the modified hyphae that we call as arbuscule that penetrate into the deep tissue of the host to trap or to absorb the nutrient from host. Okay, right. So please focus on this picture. You can see that this picture containing showing you hyphae. Is it septate hyphae or cenocytic hyphae? Yes, it is septate hyphae because you can see the presence of septa. Is it monokaryotic or dikaryotic hyphae? This is monokaryotic hyphae because you can see there is only one nucleus here. Okay, all right. So this is example of septate hyphae. Okay, right. And in this picture, you can see that this hyphae, right, also having modified arbuscule where the hyphae is adapted to trap and to kill the prey. Okay, all right. Mode of nutrition for fungi. Fungi are heterotroph that acquire nutrient by absorption. So due to that, they will secrete exoenzyme, right? That will helps to break down food outside the body of the fungus into a simpler compound. Okay, right. Some fungi are decomposers, good decomposers that all we call as saprobes. Some are parasitic fungi and some are mutualistic symbiont, which their presence help to give benefit for both the host and also the fungi itself. Okay, fungal reproduction. So fungi reproduce by producing non-motile spore, either sexually or asexually. So fungal produce spores, either the spores produced sexually or asexually. In asexual reproduction, filamentous fungi produce haploid spores by mitosis. Okay, please take note. Right, in asexual reproduction, fungi produce haploid spore, which is N, ploidy number is N, by mitosis. Yeast is also a fungi. Yeast reproduce asexually by budding, pertunasan. Okay. And as for the sexual reproduction of fungi, the sexual reproduction involving cytoplasmic fusion, the fusion of cytoplasm, or we call as plasmogamy, and nuclear fusion, which is involving the fusion of nucleus that we call as karyogamy. All right, okay. So there are three phylums of fungi. The first phylum is Mucoromycota. Phylum Mucoromycota. All right. So before we go on, I want to show you the picture of the life cycle of fungal in the phylum of Mucoromycota. Okay. I want you to see and observe the three different stage of the life cycle in the phylum of Mucoromycota. The first one is haploid stage, which is the light purple color. You can see this area is the haploid stage of the life cycle. The purple stage is here, right? N plus N, meaning heterokaryotic means N plus N, meaning that the nucleus is already within one cell but not yet fused, right? And as karyogamy takes place, then it will then change to diploid stage of the life cycle. Okay, all right. Now, what I want you to observe is, please look at the hyphae. Or here is the interwoven mat of the hyphae that we call as mycelia. Look at the mycelia. Is this fungal in the phylum of Mucoromycota have septate hyphae or multinucleated cenocytic hyphae? Okay, good. The answer is it has cenocytic hyphae. Okay, all right. So for Mucoromycota, phylum Mucoromycota, the hyphae are cenocytic, which is without septa. Right? In the asexual phase of the life cycle, sporangia develop at the tips of upright hyphae, where within each sporangium there are hundreds of haploid spores develop. Okay, now let's see the asexual phase. Okay, you have to look at this picture. This is the asexual phase of the life cycle. So at the asexual phase of the life cycle, there is formation of sporangia at the tips of upright hyphae. So this is tip of upright hyphae. Okay, yang menegak ke atas. And you can see here, this is sporangia. And the sporangia contain 100 of spores. Okay, right, next. The spore germinate, then growing into mycelium. Right. But if environmental condition deteriorate, keadaan persekitaran merosot, contohnya kurang cahaya, nutrient, water and so on, the rhizopus is the example of fungal in this phylum. Rhizopus means the black bread mold. Okay, rhizopus may reproduce sexually and producing zygote in the form of zygosporangium. Example is Rhizopus stolonifer, which is the black bread mold. Okay, look here again in the life cycle, right? So you can see what happened to the spore. The spore later on will germinate into new mycelium, right? But if environmental condition deteriorate, the rhizopus will develop a zygote, right? The zygote in the form of zygosporangium. So this is the picture of zygosporangium. It is black, rough, and thick to protect the nucleus or to protect the zygote. Okay. Okay, so again, this is picture of the tips of upright hyphae where it has sporangium containing 100 of spores. Okay, and this is the zygosporangium that contain zygote in the sexual reproduction. Okay, that is the first phylum, Phylum Mucoromycota, and the example is Rhizopus stolonifer, the black bread mold. Okay, now let's go to Phylum Ascomycota. Okay, Ascomycota, or we call the fungi in this phylum we call as ascomycete. So ascomycete produce sexual spore that we call as ascospore. So the sexual spore is known as ascopore. Ascospore that found in a sac-like structure called as asci or ascus. That's why this fungi is known as sac fungi. Ascus can be found in ascocarp. So in other words, in ascocarp you can find ascus or asci, and in asci you will find ascospore. Okay, ascocarp is the fruiting body. In many asci, will be 8 ascospores that line up in a row. So the range is in size and complexity from unicellular yeast to multicellular carp fungi. Okay, right. Many ascomycete are plant pathogen. Some of them are plant pathogens and some of them are very important saprobes, or we call as decomposers. Okay, look here. The life cycle of phylum in fungi in the phylum of Ascomycota. Okay, first I want you again to focus on the mycelia. Look at the mycelia. So what classification of the hyphae is this for phylum Ascomycota? Is it septate hyphae or cenocetic hyphae? Yes, it is septate hyphae. And is it monokaryotic or dikaryotic? Yes, it is monokaryotic hyphae because you can see there is only one nucleus in each separation between the septa or septum. Okay, so Ascomycota is septate hyphae. Okay, next let's look at the sexual reproduction. Okay, just now the sexual reproduction of spore in the phylum of Ascomycota. So you can see that it will produce ascospore. The ascospore, there are 8 ascospore. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 ascospore lined up in a row that can be found in asci. So this is picture of asci. You can see that there are so many asci. In each asci there are 8 ascospore lined up in a row. And the asci is found in the fruiting body that we call as ascocarp. So this is ascocarp. Okay, right. What else? Okay, and then what about the asexual reproduction? Okay, you can see that in asexual reproduction, it will produce a type of spore that known as conidia, right? So the conidia found in conidiophore. So this is conidiophore. Okay, what are example of Phylum Ascomycota? They are like orange peel fungus. Okay, they are mostly known as carp fungi. And this is Morchella esculenta, the edible ascocarp. Alright, and this is a truffle, Cuber melanosporum. Okay, and including Neurospora crassa, right? Feed as a mold on bread and other food, Neurospora crassa. Okay, alright. So this is the fruiting body ascocarp. In ascocarp, you can find ascus, okay, or asci, and within each ascus, you will have 8 ascospore lined up in a row. Okay, right. Ascomycete produce asexually, as we look at the picture just now, by producing asexual spore that known as conidia. So conidia, right, develop long chains at the tip of specialized hyphae known as conidiophore. So conidia found at the tips of conidiophore. Example of what we call it, Ascomycota is Neurospora crassa, a bread mold. Okay, so you can see here, this is the conidia that found at the tips of specialized hyphae that known as conidiophore, right? So another example, despite Neurospora crassa, right, for the phylum of Ascomycota is Penicillium species, that very important in making antibiotics, and also Saccharomyces cerevisiae, or the yeast, okay, yeast that used to make bread. Okay, next we go to the phylum Basidiomycota, the third phylum, Basidiomycota. So the name of the phylum is derived from the club-like shape basidium. Club-like shape basidium at the diploid stage. Okay, basidiomycetes are important decomposers of wood and other plant materials. So they are very important as saprobes, which is decomposers of wood. The life cycle of club fungus usually include a long-lived dikaryotic mycelium. So this is a very special characteristic for phylum Basidiomycota. They have long-lived dikaryotic mycelium. Okay. Alright, you can see here the haploid stage of the life cycle, right, is the light purple color. So this area, okay, and this is dikaryotic stage, right, that purple color over here. If you compare the purple region between the three phylum, Basidiomycota has the largest, the longest stage of dikaryotic stage. So that is a special characteristic of Basidiomycota, where they have long-lived dikaryotic mycelium. Okay, right. So next, I want you to focus on the mycelia. Please look at the mycelia. Sorry, over here. Okay. Right? Look at the mycelia. Is it monokaryotic or dikaryotic? Is it septate or cynocytic hyphae? Of course, very clear, it is septate hyphae. Monokaryotic or dikaryotic? So you can see here, it is having dikaryotic hyphae or mycelium. Okay, right. Okay, next. When rain or temperature changes, it will induce the dikaryotic mycelium to reproduce sexually by producing fruiting bodies that called as basidiocarp. Okay, the basidia form 4 sexual spores known as basidiospore. So in other words, in basidiocarp, you will find basidia. In basidia, you will find 4 sexual spores that known as basidiospore. Asexual reproduction is less common in Basidiomycete, meaning that they are not very prone to asexual reproduction. So they are more what you call it, the life cycle is more preferred to sexual reproduction. Okay. Example of basidiomycetes are mushroom and also shelf fungi. Okay, let's see again the life cycle. You can see that most of the life cycle involving sexual reproduction. All right. So, okay, you can see here there are 4 basidiospore found in Basidium or Basidia. All right. Oh, okay, let's see here. So this fruiting body we call as basidiocarp. Under the basidiocarp, you will found basidia, and in at the end of the basidia, you will have 4 basidiospore. Okay, right. It's look like the upside down of clown cap, right? So the bell on the clown cap will be the basidium. The cap itself will be basidiospore. The cap itself will be the basidium, right? Okay. Okay, so again, so here you have the basidiocarp. So this is the basidiocarp. The gills underneath the basidiocarp, this one, the gills underneath the basidiocarp, you will find basidia that bears basidiospore. So this is the basidiospore and this is the basidia or basidium. Okay, so despite mushroom, there are other examples like fly agaric, okay, maiden veil fungus, right? Fungus that have odor like rotten meat, okay, and this is shelf fungi that we used to see in the forest, and this is puffball, another example. All right, okay, and as conclusion, right, you can see that the 3 type of hyphae. Remember, this one is Mucoromycota. Okay, so phylum Mucoromycota, the example ataupun the fungi we call as Mucoromycete. Next, second phylum is Ascomycota, and the third phylum is Basidiomycota. So for Mucoromycota, they are having no septa, which we call as synocytic hyphae, right? So it produces sexual spore that called as zygospore, found in the zygosporangium, and the asexual spore is known as spore sahaja. As for Ascomycota, they are having septate hyphae, monokaryotic septate hyphae. The sexual spore is known as ascospore. Alright, remember 8 ascospore lined up in a row found in asci, and for asexual reproduction it produces conidia. So conidia found at the tips of conidiophore. Alright, and as for Basidiomycota, they have septate dikaryotic hyphae. Right, the sexual reproduction of spore produces spore known as basidiospore that can be found in Basidia. Remember, it's look like the upside down of clown cap, where you have 4 basidiospore. All right, this is the basidiospore. And for ascospore, for Ascomycota, remember there are 8 ascospore lined up in a row. Right, the spore found in ascus or asci, right? And for zygospore, remember, okay, it is formed in the zygosporangium. All right, okay. So, and as for Basidiomycota, the asexual reproduction is not prominent, all right, less common, because they are usually undergo sexual reproduction. Okay, that's all about apa nama kingdom of fungi.